She begged for a ride. The cowboy gave her something priceless. The sun hung low over the horizon, casting long shadows across the dusty road that ran through the quiet countryside. The wind whispered through the tall grass, carrying with it the faint scent of dry earth and wildflowers. A young woman walked along the edge of the road, her small bag heavy on her shoulder. She had been walking for hours, her feet blistered and sore, her throat dry from the heat and dust. Each step felt heavier than the last, and the horizon seemed to stretch endlessly before her. Her name did not matter to the world passing by. She was just another traveler in need. She raised her hand, waving at the occasional passing car, hoping for a friendly face, a gesture of help, anything that would save her from walking another mile. Most of the cars drove past without slowing, the drivers avoiding her eyes, busy with their own lives. Each one that ignored her made her chest tighten with despair. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to keep moving, though exhaustion was gnawing at her from every direction. In the distance, the rhythmic sound of hooves striking the ground reached her ears. She squinted and saw a figure on horseback, moving steadily along the horizon. The silhouette was classic, a cowboy hat tilted over the rider's face, a long coat fluttering slightly with the motion of the horse. Unlike the cars, this figure did not seem in a hurry, and somehow that calm presence gave her a small spark of hope. She waved her arms, calling out, her voice cracking from both dryness and desperation. "Excuse me." "Please, can you help me?" The horse slowed, the cowboy's head turning slightly to acknowledge her. The woman's heart raced. She didn't know if she could trust a stranger, but her options were running out. The wind seemed to hold its breath as the horse approached, hooves raising tiny clouds of dust with each step. When the cowboy stopped a few feet away, he dismounted slowly, keeping his hands visible and movements deliberate. The young woman swallowed nervously. I just need a ride to the next town. I've been walking for hours." "Please," she said, her voice shaking. She gripped the strap of her bag, afraid she might drop it in the rush of emotion. The cowboy studied her for a moment, his face mostly hidden beneath the brim of his hat. There was no immediate answer, no sudden judgment, only the steady presence of a man who seemed to measure everything carefully. Finally he nodded, and with a small gesture toward his horse, he spoke in a calm voice. "You can ride with me, but you'll have to be careful." The woman blinked, a mix of relief and nervousness flooding her. She wasn't sure what to expect. Riding a horse was something she had never done before. The idea of trusting a stranger with her safety was frightening, yet the exhaustion in her body outweighed the fear. She took a deep breath and nodded, swallowing her pride. The cowboy guided her carefully, showing her how to mount the horse. She fumbled at first, her legs trembling as she swung herself over the saddle. The cowboy's hands were steady and reassuring, helping her balance without a word. Once she was seated, he stepped back and nodded again, signaling that it was time to move. The horse began to walk, slow and steady. At first, every movement made her grip the saddle tighter, her heart racing with each step. But soon the rhythmic sway of the horse and the quiet confidence of the cowboy beside her began to soothe her nerves. The wind cooled her face, carrying with it the scent of wildflowers and freshly turned earth. And for a moment, she felt a kind of peace she hadn't known in weeks. They rode along the edge of fields that stretched endlessly, the sun casting warm, golden light across the landscape. She dared to glance at the cowboy, noticing the lines on his face, weathered by years under the sun, and the calm steadiness in his eyes. He didn't speak much, only giving directions when needed, letting the horse choose the rhythm of their journey. There was a quiet understanding between them, unspoken but real. The young woman began to talk, mostly to distract herself from the ache in her legs and the nervous tension in her chest. She told the cowboy small things about where she had come from, how she had run into trouble with someone who had meant to hurt her, and how she needed to get to town to find work and safety. She spoke cautiously, afraid of oversharing, but the cowboy listened without interrupting. There was no judgment in his silence, only presence, and that alone gave her a strange comfort. The cowboy occasionally nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. "You've come a long way," he said quietly, finally breaking the silence. "Not just on this road, but everything. It shows." His voice was calm but carried weight, like the words were measured and meaningful. She looked down, unsure how to respond. No one had ever said something like that to her, acknowledging more than her immediate troubles. I just had to keep going," she admitted, her voice soft. "I didn't know what else to do." He didn't reply immediately. Instead, he let the horse continue at its steady pace, the only sound the soft thud of hooves against dirt and the whisper of wind through grass. Then he said, "Sometimes just keeping going is the hardest part, but it matters." The woman's heart lifted slightly. His words were simple, but they carried a truth she had been forgetting in her struggle. She realized that in this quiet moment, riding through open fields with a stranger who seemed to care in the smallest, quietest way, she was allowed to feel safe again. As they rode, she began to notice small details in the world around her. The way the sunlight reflected off the tips of the grass, the distant mountains fading into the haze, and the patterns of birds moving across the sky. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to breathe fully, to let the tension in her body loosen. The cowboy never rushed her, never questioned her presence, only offered a steady hand, steady horse, and steady company. Time passed differently out here. The road seemed long but not endless, each mile marking a step away from fear and toward safety. She shared stories of her past, moments of joy, moments of pain, careful to speak honestly but without unnecessary detail. And the cowboy listened, sometimes nodding, sometimes simply letting silence hold the space between words. As the sun sank lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, the young woman realized that the world could still hold unexpected kindness. Most of the cars had ignored her, yet here was someone who had stopped, who had offered her not just a ride, but a calm, steady presence in a world that had been harsh and lonely. She felt a gratitude she couldn't quite put into words, a sense of relief that someone could be this patient and caring without expecting anything in return. Finally, the cowboy slowed the horse as they approached a grove of trees at the edge of a small ranch. He dismounted and gestured for her to do the same. Her legs were stiff and trembling, but she obeyed, feeling a strange mix of nervousness and anticipation. She had no idea what awaited her here, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope. He offered her a small smile, just a hint, enough to feel human and kind. "We'll take it slow from here," he said. "You'll rest soon." The young woman nodded, clutching her bag tightly. She realized that this simple act, this cowboy stopping to help a stranger, was something she would never forget. It wasn't a grand gesture, not a dramatic rescue. It was patience, quiet guidance, and a willingness to share a little bit of safety with someone who had none. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the world in the soft glow of evening, she felt that maybe, just maybe, everything could get better. The young woman sat stiffly on the horse, her legs still sore from walking so long. The cowboy walked beside her, his boots making soft thuds in the dust. The horse's pace was slow, steady, as if it understood the fragility of the passenger it carried. Every step seemed to shake her body gently, but it was a different kind of movement, one that made her feel alive again rather than tired. She glanced at the cowboy, trying to read him, but his face remained calm, quiet, almost unreadable beneath the wide brim of his hat. There was something reassuring about the way he carried himself, a sense of patience and thoughtfulness that made her feel safe without a single word being spoken. She swallowed hard and decided to speak, to break the silence that had stretched between them since they left the road. I've never been on a horse before," she admitted softly. Her voice was almost swallowed by the wind, but it carried a note of embarrassment. She didn't want him to think she was weak, but there was no hiding the truth. The cowboy chuckled lightly, a sound that felt warm and unhurried. "You're doing fine," he said simply. "Horses can sense fear, but you're holding steady. That matters." Her stomach relaxed slightly. The compliment wasn't grand or dramatic, but it was enough to make her shoulders loosen. She leaned forward a little, gripping the saddle more comfortably, trying to find balance with the rhythm of the horse's walk. They rode on, the landscape opening up into fields of golden grass that stretched far into the distance. Small hills rolled gently under the sunlight, and the air smelled of earth and wildflowers. mixed with the faint tang of sweat from both horse and rider. The woman breathed deeply, letting the smells and sounds fill her senses. It was a strange kind of calm, the sort she hadn't felt in weeks. "I've been walking for days," she said, almost to herself. "I didn't know where else to go. I just kept moving." Her voice trembled slightly, but she continued, needing someone to hear her story. "I ran from someone who wanted to hurt me. I didn't have a place to stay or anyone to trust. I had to keep going." The cowboy listened without interrupting, his eyes scanning the horizon as if he could see the roads ahead before they came. When he finally spoke, his words were slow, measured. "Sometimes the hardest part isn't moving forward," he said. "It's deciding to keep going when it feels like the world is against you." She nodded, letting the words settle in her chest. It was strange how someone she barely knew could say exactly what she felt inside. It wasn't pity or sympathy. It was understanding. It gave her a strange comfort, like someone was finally acknowledging the weight she carried. The horse turned slightly to avoid a small rock in the path, and the cowboy guided it gently with a soft pull on the reins. "Don't be afraid," he said, not to the horse, but to her. "You're stronger than you think. Stronger than you know." She swallowed again, trying to hold back tears she hadn't allowed herself in days. The words touched something deep inside her, something that had been buried under fear and exhaustion. For the first time in a long time, she felt a small spark of hope, fragile but real. As they rode, she noticed how the cowboy treated the horse. Every movement was careful and deliberate, never harsh or abrupt. He spoke softly to the animal, as if it understood every word. Watching him, she began to realize that strength wasn't always loud or forceful. Sometimes, strength was quiet, patient, steady, and kind. After a while, she spoke again, her voice softer this time. "I don't even know your name." The cowboy tilted his head slightly, considering her.
"Some call me Jack," he said finally. "But names don't matter much out here."
"What matters is what you do." She nodded slowly.
I'm
Emma," she said, feeling a little embarrassed that it was the first thing she shared about herself. But saying it out loud felt freeing, like claiming a part of herself that had been hidden. Jack nodded once, as if acknowledging not just her name but her presence, her struggle, and her decision to keep moving forward. Silence returned for a while, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with the gentle rhythm of the horse, the wind, and the quiet understanding growing between them. As the afternoon sun began to dip lower, painting the fields in shades of gold and orange, Emma noticed the way shadows stretched across the landscape. It made her feel small and insignificant, but not in a scary way. Instead, it was humbling, a reminder that the world was vast, and her problems, while real, were part of a bigger picture. Jack finally spoke again. "You've got courage," he said simply. "It's easy to give up when the road is hard. You didn't. That's something to remember."
Emma's chest tightened.
She wasn't used to hearing words like that. People often judged her, dismissed her, or ignored her struggles. But here, on the back of a horse, with a stranger who seemed to care without asking for anything in return, she felt seen, not for how she looked or what she had done, but for who she was. They rode on, the wind brushing her face, carrying away some of the heaviness she had been carrying. She began to notice more details, the way the grass swayed in patterns like waves, the distant mountains fading into purple in the evening light, and the sounds of birds settling into their nests. Each detail grounded her, helped her feel present rather than lost in fear and worry. I've never felt safe for a long time," she said quietly, almost whispering to the wind. "I don't even know what it feels like to trust someone completely." Jack didn't answer immediately. He simply guided the horse along a gentle path through the fields. Then, after a moment, he said, "Trust is earned, not given. But sometimes you find it in the strangest places." Emma looked at him, catching the edge of a small smile on his face. It was subtle, but it carried warmth. She felt something she hadn't in a long time, a belief that maybe, just maybe, someone could care without expecting anything in return. As the sun continued to sink, the landscape began to change. Trees appeared along the edges of the fields, their branches creating soft shadows on the path. The air grew cooler, carrying with it the smell of damp earth and evening grass. The horse walked steadily, and Emma felt her body relaxing into the rhythm of its steps. She began to tell more of her story, carefully, in small pieces, about her childhood, about dreams she had put aside, about mistakes she had made and lessons she had learned the hard way. Jack listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding, occasionally offering a simple word of guidance. His patience gave her a sense of safety she hadn't realized she needed so badly.
"You're stronger than you give yourself credit for," he said at one point as the horse stepped over a shallow stream.
Life can be hard, but you can handle more than you think. Emma felt tears prick her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She was learning, slowly, that strength wasn't about never feeling afraid. It was about moving forward, despite fear. It was about accepting help when it was offered, and giving yourself the chance to grow. The evening stretched on, the sky turning deeper shades of orange and purple, stars beginning to appear faintly above. They reached a small grove near the edge of a ranch, where the path opened up into soft grass and the sounds of animals settling for the night. Jack slowed the horse to a gentle walk, then finally stopped. "Here we'll stop for now," he said. "You'll rest soon." Emma slid off the horse, her legs shaky but grateful. The sun had almost disappeared, leaving a soft glow in the sky. She took a deep breath, letting the cool evening air fill her lungs. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of relief so deep it surprised her. Jack handed her a small bottle of water. "Drink," he said. "It'll help." She accepted it gratefully, taking small sips, feeling the cool liquid soothe her dry throat. She looked at him, wanting to say thank you, but no words seemed enough. His presence, his patience, his quiet kindness, it had already given her more than she could express. "Tomorrow," he said, almost as if reading her thoughts, "we'll continue. You'll be ready. You just need rest tonight." Emma nodded, feeling a sense of hope that had been absent for a long time. For the first time, the journey ahead didn't feel impossible. With this quiet cowboy beside her, guiding her gently, she felt the weight of fear and uncertainty lighten just a little. And as night fell over the fields, she realized something important. Sometimes the kindness of a stranger could change everything. Not with grand gestures or dramatic rescues, but with patience, quiet guidance, and a willingness to share a little bit of safety when it was needed most. The next morning, the young woman woke to the soft light of dawn spilling over the fields. The air was crisp and fresh, carrying the faint scent of dew and earth. Her body ached from the long walk and the ride the day before, but the ache felt different now. It was not just fatigue. It was the feeling of muscles being used after days of exhaustion. She stretched slowly, letting the cool morning air fill her lungs. And for the first time in a long time, she felt a small sense of peace. Jack, the cowboy, was already outside tending to the horses. His movements were calm and practiced, each gesture deliberate. He noticed her stirring and nodded briefly in greeting. There was no hurry in his actions, no demand, only quiet acknowledgement of her presence. She nodded back, still shy and unsure, but feeling safer than she had in weeks. "Good morning," she said softly, her voice a little hoarse. "Morning, Jack," replied his tone calm. "Sleep well?" "Yes," she admitted. "For the first time in a long time, I slept through the night." She smiled faintly, feeling the weight of exhaustion lift just a little. Jack gestured toward the horses. "Breakfast first, then we'll see about the day." Emma followed him, still feeling a little clumsy in her own body. The ranch was small but welcoming, with a few simple buildings, a garden, and open fields. Chickens clucked softly near the coop, and a few cows grazed nearby. Everything felt alive, safe, and ordinary in a way that reminded her there was a world beyond fear and worry. Jack prepared a simple breakfast of eggs, bread, and coffee. He worked quietly, not rushing, and she watched him. There was something about the way he moved, steady, careful, deliberate, that made even ordinary tasks feel meaningful. "You don't have to do anything," he said, noticing her hesitation as she stood by. "Sit, eat, rest. That's your job right now." Emma hesitated but then took a seat. The smell of the food was comforting, reminding her of meals she had once enjoyed at home, though that seemed a lifetime ago. She took a bite of bread and eggs, savoring the simple flavors, feeling the nourishment go straight into her tired body. After breakfast, Jack suggested they take the horses out to the fields for a short ride. "It'll help you get used to them," he said. "Horses are patient, but they respond to trust. You'll learn faster if you spend time with them." Emma nodded. She had been afraid at first, but now, after the slow ride yesterday, she felt ready to try again. She approached one of the horses cautiously, letting it sniff her hand before she reached for the reins. The animal nuzzled her gently, and she smiled, feeling a connection she hadn't expected. Jack walked beside her as they rode, offering gentle guidance. "Relax your shoulders. Breathe with the horse. Let it feel your calm." Horses sense everything. Fear, worry, tension. They feel it all. She followed his instructions, letting her body relax and sync with the rhythm of the horse. The field stretched out before them, golden under the morning sun, and she felt a sense of freedom she hadn't known for a long time. The wind brushed her face, the grass whispered beneath them, and for a moment she felt like she belonged somewhere. As they rode, she began to talk again, this time not about fear or danger, but about dreams she had once had. "I used to want to paint," she said quietly. "I loved colors and shapes, making something out of nothing. But life got in the way. I never had the chance to really try." Jack listened silently, nodding as they moved along the path. "You can still try," he said simply. "It's never too late to do what matters to you. The world isn't fair, but you can still choose what matters to you." Emma felt a spark of hope in her chest. His words were simple, but they carried weight. It wasn't advice shouted or demanded. It was a quiet reminder that life could still hold possibility, even for someone who had been running for so long. They spent the morning working with the horses, brushing them, feeding them, and leading them across the fields. Emma felt her muscles strengthen, her confidence grow. Jack guided her gently, praising small successes and correcting mistakes with patience. She began to see the value in quiet effort and steady guidance. By midday, they returned to the ranch. The sun was high now, warm but not oppressive. Jack handed her a glass of water. "Drink." "You're doing well, more than you think." Emma smiled faintly. She felt proud not just of what she had done but of herself. For the first time in a long time she felt capable. She could follow instructions, learn new skills, and handle challenges. It was empowering in a way she hadn't realized she needed. After lunch, Jack suggested they walk through the garden. He showed her how to care for the plants, explaining each step carefully. "Patience," he said. "Things grow in their own time. You can't force them. You just care for them, and you wait." Emma watched him, listening. It seemed like such a simple lesson, but she understood. Life had forced her to rush, to react, to survive without pause. Here, she was learning that slowing down, caring, and waiting could be just as powerful as moving quickly. Hours passed in this way. They worked with the animals, tended the garden, and walked across the fields. Emma felt her fears begin to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence. She wasn't running anymore, and she didn't have to. She could stay, learn, and prepare for whatever came next. In the evening, they sat on the porch of the ranch house watching the sun set. The sky was a mixture of gold, pink, and purple, the colors reflecting in Emma's eyes as she took a deep breath. She felt a sense of calm she hadn't known in months. "You've learned a lot today," Jack said quietly. "Not about horses, but about yourself. You can handle more than you think, and you're capable of patience, care, and courage." Emma smiled faintly. She realized that this day, simple as it had been, had changed something inside her. She felt stronger, more grounded, more prepared for the challenges ahead. And she understood that Jack's kindness had done more than provide safety. It had taught her to believe in herself again. That night, as she lay in the small cabin he had offered her, she reflected on everything she had learned. She thought about the ride, the animals, the garden, and the quiet lessons from Jack. She felt a sense of gratitude deeper than she had ever felt before. It wasn't just for the food or the shelter, but for the chance to rest, to learn, and to grow. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to hope. She hoped that she could find her way, that she could create a life of her own, and that she could carry the lessons she had learned here into the future. She drifted to sleep with a sense of peace she hadn't known in years, and outside the ranch lay quiet under the stars, the wind whispering softly through the trees. Jack tended to the animals one last time, his silhouette calm against the night sky. He didn't say much, but his presence spoke volumes. His patience, guidance, and quiet understanding had given Emma something far more valuable than a ride or a meal. It had given her the beginnings of a new life. In the morning they would continue the journey, but tonight they simply rested. The world could wait, and for Emma, that was enough. The next morning the sun rose slowly, painting the ranch in soft shades of orange and gold. Emma woke early, feeling more rested than she had in months. Her body ached slightly from the work and rides of the previous day, but it was the kind of ache that spoke of effort and accomplishment, not exhaustion. For the first time in a long while, she felt ready to face the day. Jack was already outside preparing the horses. His movements were steady and deliberate, as if each gesture had a purpose beyond the obvious. He noticed Emma watching and gave a brief nod. "Morning," he said simply. "Morning," she replied, her voice filled with a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. "Today we'll do more than ride," Jack said. "You'll learn some of the work that keeps this ranch going. It's not always easy, but it teaches patience, responsibility, and respect." Emma nodded. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she trusted him. Over the past days he had shown her that patience and guidance were as important as strength. She felt that whatever challenge he set before her, she could face it. The first task was simple but unfamiliar, feeding the livestock. Emma watched as Jack measured out the hay and grain for the cows and horses. Then he handed her a small bucket. "Your turn," he said. "Take it slowly. Pay attention to the animals. They respond to calm, not rush." Emma bent to carry the bucket, feeling the weight in her hands. She moved carefully, trying to follow his advice. The cows sniffed at the bucket, and she spoke softly to them, imitating the calm tone Jack had used with the horses. Slowly, she began to understand that care and gentleness could accomplish more than force or hurry. The animals responded, moving closer and eating from her hands. "Good," Jack said quietly. "See? Patience and calmness work. It's the same in life as it is with animals." Emma smiled faintly, feeling a sense of pride. It was a small lesson, but it felt important. She was learning more than just ranch work. She was learning how to face challenges with care and thoughtfulness, rather than fear and panic. After feeding the animals, Jack led her to a small garden behind the ranch house. "Your next lesson," he said, "is about growth. Things grow in their own time. You can't rush them. You just care for them and wait." Emma spent the next hour pulling weeds, watering plants, and learning to recognize which vegetables were ready to harvest. It was quiet work, but it demanded attention and focus. She realized that she had been so focused on surviving that she had never taken time to care for something and watch it grow. It felt strangely satisfying to nurture life rather than run from danger. By midday, the sun was high and warm, and Emma felt the first real sense of accomplishment in weeks. She had completed tasks that were challenging in their own way, tasks that required patience, care, and focus. And through it all, Jack had guided her, correcting gently when she made mistakes and praising small successes. After lunch, Jack suggested they take a ride to a nearby hill that overlooked the valley.
"It's important to see the bigger picture sometimes," he said. "It helps you understand your place and your purpose."
Emma mounted her horse, feeling more confident than the day before. The rhythm of the horse felt familiar now, and she trusted both the animal and Jack's guidance. As they rode toward the hill, she glanced at the field stretching behind them, realizing how far she had come in such a short time. The fear and worry that had weighed her down seemed lighter now, replaced by determination and quiet courage. When they reached the top, the view was breathtaking. The valley spread out below them, rivers winding like silver threads, fields glowing in the sunlight, and distant mountains fading into the horizon. Emma felt a rush of awe and humility. She had faced so much, yet here she was, looking out over a world that was vast and full of possibilities. Jack remained beside her, quiet as ever. "It's easy to get lost in the small problems," he said. "But when you step back and see the bigger picture, you understand what really matters." Emma nodded. She realized that he was not just teaching her about ranch work or horses, he was teaching her about life. She was learning to balance effort with patience, courage with caution, and independence with trust. As they rode back down the hill, Emma noticed a small path leading into a grove of trees. Curious, she asked about it. "That path leads to the river," Jack explained. "It's a quiet place. People often come here to think, to rest, or to plan. Sometimes you need to be alone with your thoughts. It's part of learning about yourself." Emma decided to follow his suggestion. She walked slowly along the path, the sounds of leaves rustling and water flowing soothing her. She found a spot by the river and sat down, letting the cool breeze wash over her. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to think clearly without fear or worry clouding her mind. She reflected on her journey, the danger she had escaped, the exhaustion she had endured, and the unexpected kindness she had received from Jack. She realized that life had given her a second chance. It was not an easy path, and there would be more challenges ahead, but she now had tools she had never possessed before: patience, resilience, and a growing confidence in herself. She understood that she could face hardships without being crushed by them. When she returned to the ranch, Jack was waiting with a small wooden bucket filled with water. "Time to clean up," he said. "Responsibility doesn't end just because the day is over. Part of growth is caring for your surroundings." Emma nodded, feeling grateful for his guidance. She cleaned the animals, tidied the stables, and helped organize supplies. Each small task reinforced the lesson she had learned. Effort, care, and attention to detail were powerful tools in life. By evening, she was tired but satisfied. She sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the fields. The sky was painted in shades of orange, pink, and purple, and the world felt calm and alive. Jack joined her, offering a simple nod of acknowledgement. "You've done well today," he said. "Not just with the work, but with yourself. You're learning to balance patience with effort, trust with independence. That's something most people take a lifetime to understand." Emma smiled faintly. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted. "You've taught me so much in such a short time." Jack shrugged lightly, but there was a softness in his eyes. "You had it in you all along. I just helped you see it." As night fell, Emma returned to the small cabin, her body tired but her mind clear. She felt a sense of accomplishment and pride she hadn't known in years. She realized that growth wasn't always about dramatic events or big victories. It was about small, consistent efforts, about learning to face challenges with patience and courage. That night, as she lay down to sleep, she reflected on the day's lessons. She had faced physical challenges, learned new skills, and most importantly, gained confidence in herself. The kindness and guidance she had received from Jack had shown her that the world could still hold goodness and hope, even after hardship. For the first time, she felt ready to face whatever came next. She understood that challenges would come, but she now had the tools to handle them. She had learned to trust, to care, and to grow, and she knew that with patience and effort, she could navigate the road ahead with courage and strength. The morning sun rose slowly over the ranch, spreading soft golden light across the fields. Emma woke early, feeling a sense of calm she had not known for months. Her body ached slightly from the work and riding of the past days, but this time the ache was satisfying, a reminder of her strength, effort, and the progress she had made. She stretched slowly, taking in the peaceful surroundings. For the first time in a long while, she felt ready to face the world outside the ranch. Jack was already outside, tending to the horses. He noticed Emma stirring and gave a small nod, his expression calm and quiet. "Morning," he said simply. "Morning," Emma replied, smiling faintly. Her confidence had grown over the past days. She no longer felt the heavy weight of fear and uncertainty pressing on her chest. She had learned patience, trust, and resilience, and most importantly, she had begun to believe in herself again. "Today," Jack said, "we'll finish some work, then you'll be ready to move on. But before that, there's something I want to show you." Emma's curiosity was piqued. She followed him as he led the horse to the stable. After brushing and feeding the animals, Jack walked her to a small cabin near the edge of the ranch. Inside, he reached for a worn leather notebook from a shelf. He handed it to her gently. "This is for you," he said quietly. "It's not much, but it's something I've kept for a long time. It has lessons, advice, and reminders. Things I've learned about life, work, and people. It helped me when I needed guidance, and now I want it to help you." Emma held the notebook in her hands, feeling the weight of it. She looked up at Jack, her eyes wide. "For me?" she asked softly, almost in disbelief. "For you," Jack confirmed. "I don't expect anything in return. Some things in life can't be measured by money or work. Sometimes the right guidance is priceless." She opened the notebook carefully, flipping through the pages filled with neat handwriting. Notes about patience, kindness, and courage were scattered among practical advice for work and survival. There were small sketches of animals, simple diagrams for tasks on the ranch, and even a few personal reflections from Jack's own life. Each page carried wisdom that felt alive, as if it had been written with the hope of helping someone grow. Emma felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. She realized that this was more than just advice or instructions. It was a gift of trust, hope, and guidance. She had come to the ranch seeking help for her body and her immediate needs, but she was leaving with something far greater, a blueprint for living, a set of lessons that could shape her future. "Thank you," she said quietly. Her voice shook slightly, but it was filled with sincerity. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Jack replied. "Just remember the lessons. Use them to guide yourself. And trust yourself as much as you trust others." They spent the morning finishing the last tasks on the ranch together. Emma fed the animals, tended the garden, and helped organize supplies. Each task felt easier than before, not because it had become simple, but because she now had confidence in herself. The lessons Jack had taught her, patience, careful attention, and persistence, were not just words, they were part of her now. After the work was done, Jack led her to the hill overlooking the valley, the same spot they had visited days before. The view was breathtaking in the soft morning light. Rivers shimmered like silver threads, fields stretched endlessly, and the mountains stood tall in the distance. Emma felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had come so far, both physically and emotionally, and she realized that her journey was only beginning. Jack stood beside her quietly for a moment. "This view," he said, "reminds me that life is bigger than our immediate troubles. Problems seem large when we are close, but stepping back gives perspective. Don't forget to step back sometimes. It helps you see what really matters." Emma nodded, taking in the view and his words. She felt stronger, ready to face life with courage, patience, and hope. The fear and desperation that had weighed her down were no longer chains, but reminders of how far she had come. As they rode back to the ranch one last time, Emma reflected on the lessons she had learned. She had discovered the power of kindness, the importance of patience, and the value of trust. She had learned that strength was not just physical, but also emotional and mental. Most importantly, she had learned to believe in herself. At the ranch, Jack helped her pack her small bag. "You're ready," he said simply. "Go with confidence. The road ahead will have challenges, but you have everything you need to face them." Emma hugged him briefly, feeling the weight of gratitude and respect. "I'll never forget you," she said. "Thank you for everything." Jack gave a small smile, almost shy but filled with warmth. "You won't forget. And remember, the lessons are in the notebook, but the courage is already inside you. She mounted the horse, feeling a mixture of sadness and hope. The ranch had become a place of safety, learning, and growth. Jack had given her more than food, shelter, and guidance. He had given her the tools to rebuild her life and the belief that she could succeed. As she rode toward the road that would lead her to town, she looked back at the ranch one last time. The fields glowed softly in the morning light. The animals moved quietly, and Jack stood at the edge of the property, tipping his hat in farewell. A sense of peace filled her chest. She knew that life would not always be easy, but she now had the skills, patience, and inner strength to face it. The road stretched ahead, but Emma no longer felt fear. She felt ready. With the notebook in her bag and the lessons she had learned in her heart, she knew she could create a life of her own choosing. Each step she took was filled with confidence, and every decision would carry the wisdom Jack had shared with her. Along the way, she met kind strangers, handled challenges with patience, and began to rebuild the sense of trust she had lost. The lessons from the ranch became part of her daily life. Small acts of care, quiet courage, and thoughtful decisions shaped her days, and each time she faced fear, she remembered the calm voice of the cowboy, the steady rhythm of the horse, and the simple wisdom written in the leather notebook. Months later, Emma looked back on her journey not with regret or pain, but with pride. She had been lost and afraid, but she had found guidance, trust, and strength. She had learned that even in moments of fear and desperation, kindness and patience could lead to growth and hope. The cowboy's gift, the notebook, remained with her always. It was more than just paper and words. It was a symbol of the human ability to inspire, guide, and uplift others. She carried it with her not just as advice, but as a reminder that even in the darkest times, someone's quiet generosity could change a life. Emma smiled, knowing that her journey had just begun. The world was wide and full of possibilities, and she was ready. Ready to face life with courage, patience, and hope. Ready to carry forward the lessons that had been given to her, and perhaps, one day, to pass them on to someone else in need. And though the ranch and the cowboy were behind her now, their impact remained, shaping every choice, every thought, and every step she took. Emma had come seeking help for her body and her immediate safety, but she left with something far more valuable: trust, wisdom, confidence, and the priceless knowledge that life, with patience and courage, could be beautiful again.